afternoon, everyone. My name is Weiping from University of Minnesota, and I'm working with Chris Center for Research in Intelligent Storage. Okay, so the topic for my presentation is novel address mappings for Shingled Write Disks or SMR drives. Okay, I'll just follow a regular outline. I'll start with backgrounds, motivations, objectives, followed by our approaches to this problem and our evaluations. Okay, so for the backgrounds, in the morning talks, people already talk about how much data is generated each year, and that number is continuously grow, and it's going to be exponentially for the following years. So I'm not going to motivate why we need a bigger hard drives or bigger capacities for storage medias. It's a natural thing. Traditional hard disks is using perpendicular magnetic recording, and this technology is now reaching the area data density. The biggest capacity drives on market right now is 6 terabyte per 3.5-inch hard drives for enterprise and for personal use. So, but still, this is limited, and we are looking for even larger capacity. And shingled magnetic recording is a new promising technology which can increase this capacity of a single drive without significant manufacturing technique changes to the existing technology. The figure shows just one non-shingled, the regular hard drive. Then all the tracks are just one by one laid out. What we're going to do is doing shingling, and we're just going to reduce the gap between the neighboring tracks and even to overlap with each other. And in this way, which means you can lay out more tracks in the same platter inside of the disk. Okay, so this is going to be the shingled layout for SMR drives. Okay, so the characteristics with SMR drives is since we're doing the shingling fashion, and all the write has to be sequential. The reason is that if you do a modification, this is how to do the sequential write. You just complete the first check for the second, the third, and fourth, and so on. If you do a modification in the middle or in place, that will destroy the valid data in the following checks. If there is valid data in the following checks, say if we're going to update a piece of data in the second check, then it's going to affect the following checks, which is B and C, if B and C present there. Okay. So the general approaches to the updates is we have two approaches. One is in-place update, and the second one is out-of-place update. Out-of-place update is not the focus of this talk, and just to think of this as a copy on write, similar to the SSD fashion. If you want to update one page, you have to move this, write the new data to a new location and do the mapping table changes, and you have to reclaim the invalidated pages in your later garbage collection operations. Okay, so the focus of today's talk is how to do this update in place and with a minimum overhead. So in this case, if you want to update this A, what you do is you read out B and C first, then you update A and write B and C back. The sequence of how to read and write is you have at least two options, like you read out B and C together and write them back together, or you read out B first, write back a new A, and read out a C, write back B, and write back C. This is trivial operations. So the problem here is this kind of extra read and write is causing this write amplification problem. As I said, in this simple example, one write is converted into 2 reads and 3 writes, which is very bad, and especially this is not a sequential read and write, and you have to do the seek between neighboring checks. So to understand the characteristics better, then I just show the trade-off between space and performance. If you think about all the checks as a contiguous big space, then if you do, and you're just continuously writing data into your checks, okay? And then at the time you want to update the first check, for example, and then you have to update all the checks in the following checks, and that is it's terrible. So what we do is you organize the checks into bands, and the bands consists with a specified number of checks, and between bands you will have safety gaps. This is going to show is to prevent your update to this check from destroying the first check of next band. Okay, so if you do this way, then you just waste one extra band between neighboring neighboring bands. So the smaller the bands, the more space you waste. And but the good news is the smaller the band, the average, the less overhead is caused by the update. So this two formula is just to show what is the trade-off here. SG means the space gain, and the WAR is the write amplification ratio, saying if you have a band and make update to one check, what is the average write amplification ratio, which means how many extra read and write is incurred here. And a good candidate here is you use W write head width is 2 checks, and the band size is 4 checks, which means you only need one extra band in between the neighboring bands. Okay, so you can try other options, but this is one of the best candidates available right now. Okay, you can do 3 and 5, but if you say the right head is 3, that means it's harder to manufacture things. You now need to put 3 checks in the space used by 1 check in the traditional hard drive. Okay. So the objective here is we want to achieve a good balance between space gain and the performance, especially how to reduce the write amplification overhead for the updates. The motivation is we just find if we change the order we write to the checks, and the problem, the overhead can be reduced significantly. The conventional is means what it does in the traditional hard drive, or the most baseline scheme, and the Nova one is just one example of the Nova scheme. Okay, so use one single band, for example. If you use the first 25% of the space, which means the first check, then these 2 checks are free to be updated since no valid data is present in the second check. And once the space increases to 50%, then for the conventional one, you have a problem with the first check. Since now you have valid data on the second check, and you need to do 1 extra read and 1 extra write for a single update to the first check. But if you change the order of utilizing the checks and write the second checks to the last one, then I think there's a pointer, a little pointer or something. Okay, never mind. Then both checks are free to be updated. So that's a very tricky. So and the same, as we increase the capacity to the 75%, then for the conventional scheme, both the first check and the second check suffer from the write amplification overhead. But in the right-hand case, you have only the first check here. The first check here is affected, and this one and this one is free to be updated. Okay. But once we achieve 100% or utilize all the checks, then these 2 schemes basically make no big difference depending on which check is more frequently used. Okay, and then we generalize to the 2 bands, and we find the benefit is even more. And I'm not just going to show walk you through this one, just to show the animations here. As you can see, if we change the order, then we just can reduce the write amplification overhead here. Okay, so once we have these motivations, then we are going to show how we want to do the mappings to the logical address to physical address mapping. In scheme 1 is R4123. This means R means round robin. For the first 25% of the disk drive space, we use all the force checks in each band, and then in this case, no write amplification at all, since you are the only check now. And then for the next 25% of the space, and we allocate it to the first checks. We assign it to the map to the first checks. And in this case, we still have no write amplification issues. And then for the third one, we write to the second checks in each band. In this case, only the first checks in each band is suffer from the write amplification, and the other 2 is not. And for the fifth is for the last 25, you have no choice, just use the third checks in each band. Okay. The second case is this is more or less the same, since we're using the same scheme. We want to use the checks on the both sides first, and then we delay the use of the checks in the middle. So for the first 50% of the space, we map to the first check and the fourth check in each band. And then for the following 25%, we map to the second checks in each band, and the same scheme for this one. Okay. And then the third scheme is we writing for the first 75%, we map to the first, second, and fourth checks, and then just to follow the one band by one band. Okay, one by one. Okay, and then for the last 25, we map to the third checks. Okay, so if we make a comparison between those schemes, this is where's the point? Here is this is just trying to show the address mapping, spatial locality, and the write amplification points for each of the schemes. Traditional hard drive, apparently the best, you don't have any write amplification issue, so I give it 5. Spatial locality is 5, since all the LBAs are just mapped sequentially, and which is good. And then we have those numbers for the new scheme, this 3. And 1, 2, 3, 4 is the conventional mapping scheme. It has very good spatial locality, but the write amplification overhead is killing. Okay, and the right-hand figure shows the performance comparison between all the schemes. The black line shows the performance for the update performance for hard drive, and 1, 2, 3 is the performance for the conventional mapping scheme. Okay, the tricky thing is here is our schemes. The performance R schemes is going to gradually decrease as we utilize the space of the hard drive. Okay, before 50% of the usage, the performance is very stable, and then after 50%, the performance is going to gradually decrease because of some of the checks start to suffer from write amplification issues. Okay, so then we we design our experiment with we're going to simulate this SWD with a disk sim. We use this one HPC 3323A disk model, and we reuse all the parameters in this this disk drive to be to be practical. And then the only thing we changed to the disk sim is we add two components. One is the address mapper, and the other one is a write amplifier. Address mapper simply translate given LBAs to PBA. This right now we've mapped to, we changed the order we utilize the track, so we have to do this static mapping. And then, it's a static. You don't have to, it doesn't work like a mapping table, and you have to dynamically change the mapping all the time. It's a one-time mapping. And the write amplifier is going to translate an update into several reads and writes accordingly if this write incurs write amplification. Okay, so for some of this is some of the specific numbers. We use 3,000 cylinders and 1,000 blocks per cylinder. Band size for write head width is 2. And we use 4 traces. The 4 traces is chosen according to their different, here is the write percentage. The reason is that we want to show, since the write updates is the main reason for the write amplification. So we want to show that how our scheme is going to respond on the different update ratio. So there is an MSR trace with 70% write percent, and financial there is a light, little with little, a few updates there, only less than 10%. And HP trace is a moderate update trace, roughly 50% of the operations are right. And synthetic is a synthetic trace with average requested size 8 blocks, and with interval time, mean interval time is 50 milliseconds, and a standard deviation is 10 milliseconds. And this is all sequential writes and no updates at all. Okay. So for the testing, we use two things as the prediction, performance prediction shows. The performance of the mapping schemes are different at for different space usage. So we used to test at different capacity usage at 25%, 50%, 75%, and 100%. Okay. For each testing point, we're going to logically translate all the writes into updates, so we can have a light update workload, moderate update workload, and intensive update workload. Okay. And this is the results. The dark blue or the deep blue is a traditional hard drive, and our scheme is the red one, green one, and light blue. Purple one is the conventional. And as we can see here, is the conventional is always the worst throughout all the percentages and different traces. And all the new schemes is round robin for 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, round robin 3, or 1 for round robin 2, 3. It's very close to the traditional hard drive performance, especially when the update ratio is low. For the financial 2, you can see like you basically have almost the same performance as a traditional hard D. Okay. And then once the capacity is over 70%, 75%, and getting close to 100%, all the schemes except the hard drive, the traditional hard drive, they all have a chance to win, because in that case, the performance depends on which check is more frequently accessed according to the spatial locality or the LBA usage in the trace. Okay. And the last thing is here is this is to show the average write amplification ratio is around 4. Okay, all of them are around 4, because as our formula 2, there's a mathematical formula 2 shows how to calculate this average write amplification ratio. Since we are using band size 4, so the average write amplification is going to be roughly 4. You may have a little deviation that is caused by the uneven LBA usage in the trace. Okay, and for the synthetic trace, you can think of this as a code write workloads, or it's a backup workloads, archive workloads, mostly write, and then can be write once, read them up multiple times, nearly updated, hardly, nearly no updates in there. In that case, when the SWD space is less than 75%, it's very close to traditional Hardy performance. But once you're starting to use the third checks in the bands, then you have to do two more extra operations for every write. That gives you 1.5 write amplification ratio, but even the ratio is only 0.5. It causes bad performance or harm the performance for the read and write. Okay. So to sum it up, this is a straightforward topic. Our job is just going to how to reduce the write amplification ratio for SWD drives, which is shingled, and it has some inherent constraints. You have to prefer sequential write, and update has to be helped with extra reads and writes. Okay, so we use three new schemes to change the order. We use the checks in the bands such that we can improve the read-write performance and reduce the write amplification overhead. Okay, so future work is we're going to compare this in-place update SWD to out-of-place update SWD, and this is the results is going to be out very soon, but not available at the time we submit to HotStorage. Okay. And we're also going to investigate how to best use the SWDs at a different level. Right now, we make the drives as an autonomous drive, so you can use it as a drop-in manner to the existing storage systems. But if you want to best use the SWD, then you may want to manage the data allocations at high levels in the file systems or database. Okay. And also the potential topic is how to construct a big storage systems with multiple SMR drives, and either into a RAID system or using regional codes to make the implementation. Or the hybrid SWD is this is good topics too, because in our previous work we find the SMR drives. If you use out-of-place update scheme, then the SWD performance is very constrained by the interleaved read and write. This is 32. Just to show that this is one of the future topics, and a lot of people are working on this area. Okay, that's thanks for your audience, and ready for taking questions.
So we have time for a few questions.
Peter Desnoyers, Northeastern University. I found this very interesting because it is, tackling it from a much different direction than Kasuto and others. But I was curious when you talk about, various levels of utilization. Do you have a way to do that without remapping, or are you assuming that usage is basically bottom to top?
In the high level, you don't have to change anything. You just access your data with the LBA address. That's all, and all the translations is done inside the drive, and You don't have to do this runtime mapping or anything. It's a static mapping, and it's just like a traditional hard drive does. You do the addresses mapping. If you give me a PBA or LBA, I just, according to the formula, I give you the CHR, which is a cylinder, header, and sector, to give you the extra block data. And that is how this is done.
Oh, I see. So in other words, the last 75%, the last 25% having poorer performance as an example, that really means just the top 25% of LBAs.
You mean you want to use the third check first? Or the last 25%?
How do you prevent it from using the last 25% early on?
Okay. So this is related to how the file systems are using the LBA ranges. Okay. Everything is basically starting with if you design a file system, say I want to start using the high-end LBAs and gradually move towards the low-end of LBAs, then we just do the reverse mapping. But naturally, you just start with the low LBAs and gradually use, as you increase the capacity, then you just start to use the large LBAs. It is, say, some people say, the geeks say, I want to open this hard drive as a raw device file and do the LBA coding directly. In that case, that is going to reverse and reduce the advantages we are providing here. But this is not, in most cases, people are not using this way. And you just formulate a volume on top of this drive and make a file system and start to use the LBAs, and all the data management or LBA management is done by the file system, and you gradually use the space. And you delete file and you reuse the space previously.
Thank you.
Yes. Thanks.
We have time for one or two more questions here.
Paul Von Stemwitz, Fujitsu. Did you take into account temporal locality in certain workloads where what's typically rewritten was most recently written?
Yes. So those kind of things is done by the cache itself. Okay. If you do the LRU caching policy, or you have other policies, and those are frequently accessed, you just cache them and put into the cache. And in case of, say, if you're asking if our scheme is taking care of the locality by itself and with no help from the caching, then I would say no.
Yeah,
no temporal locality.
Because there'll be different workloads that would affect your scheme from a temporal. Will have different temporal locality where you might want to choose one round robin versus another depending on the
Yes.
temporal locality of the workload.
That is that choose is according to temporal locality has a less impact here. It's think as if we look back to this table here, is we do if your workload is have more spatial locality, then we prefer one of the mapping schemes, and if your workload is more has less, then we just we basically choose according to those point I assigned.
I understand the spatial locality, but also I was wondering if you factored there's an additional factor of temporal locality. Like
I haven't thought about that.
I had a question on the evaluation methodology. So you mentioned that you modify disk sim and you use one of the models based on an HP disk.
Yes.
I'm wondering how far from reality do you think this is, and what is the kind of the state of the art, or
It's
going
far.
forward, how do you plan to evaluate these things so that they resemble more of the kinds of disks that
Right.
are going to emerge?
I think this the HP drive model provided by the disk sim itself is I think it's around 2003 or 4, and it's kind of old, but we don't have any since then. I don't see any recent drive models has been put into the disk drive, and all the vendors want to be able to provide you all the say how they do caching line and what is the mappings between cylinder platters and those kind of stuff is, I think.
So in other words, still
Yes.
more clarity is available on the internals of the devices. The evaluation results could be
Right.
quite variable. Right?
Yes.
And also, can I
Can
ask you to are you considering releasing your extensions to disk sim once you finish up the work? Is that
Yes.
something you plan to do?
Yes. Yes.
I'll-
Since our lab is, our Chris Center is, we right now is working intensively on this topic. And if we want to do the RAID and the erasure code things, we have to enhance this disk sim anyway. So we're going to improve that.
All right.
Yes.
All right, let's thank the speaker.
Okay, thanks.